Excitement here in New Zealand has been ignited for this tournament.
Hearing our fans being behind us is just unforgettable.
World football at the Women's World Cup from the BBC World Service.
We're going all the way, baby.
Find it wherever you get your BBC podcasts.
Yeah, so just need to finish packing up because I do have a flight in a few hours.
Alinka, it's already looking a bit sad, your room, isn't it?
Yeah.
Stripped bed, bare walls.
There are things everywhere, so please make yourself comfortable.
Just to set the scene, we are in a trendy, high-ceilinged flat in North London. And Alinka, you are knee-deep in bags and stuff because you're about to make a very big move, aren't you?
Yeah, it is a big move because I'm actually going back to Romania after being in London for 9 years. So yeah, big step for me today.
27-year-old pharmacist Ilinka Pușcașu has British citizenship, but she was born and grew up in Romania. Did you imagine, say, 7-8 years ago, that you would return to Romania?
No, probably not.
What's changed?
No. I said, okay, let me try there and see if I can make a change after all these years in London and with this experience working in healthcare here. Let me see if I can make a difference back home in the healthcare system. Yeah, there are a lot of opportunities and it's a shame that a lot of people are leaving.
That's an understatement. In 2007, Romania joined the EU, and by 2020, a staggering 1/5 of the population, that's 4 million Romanians, had left the country. Their government desperately wants them to come home. Welcome to the documentary from the BBC World Service. I'm Tessa Dunlop, and in this edition of Assignment, I'll be following Alinka to Romania and meeting other members of the diaspora who've decided to give their homeland a second chance. Why have they returned? And will they stay? Bucharest Airport is one of the EU's biggest eastern gateways. Until recently, far more people were leaving from here than arriving as the country hemorrhaged its workforce overseas. In Western Europe, Romania became a byword for immigration. But nowadays, that narrative is being turned on its head. Barista Fitsum Hailemariam is a recent arrival from Ethiopia.
Ce faci?
What brings you to Romania?
Now we are starting moving and we are hearing about Romania. We have some vacancies here, so I heard about that from my old friend and I just came.
I was just down at the Lavazza cafe and the boss there showed me her list and she was like, yeah, we've got 1, 2, 3, 7 people from Nepal, she said.
There are a lot of Sri Lankan and Nepal, Philippines here in Romania especially.
Okay, bafta cu treaba ta și cu limba ta. Lovely to speak to you. Thank you. Large-scale migration into Romania is one very recent, visible government policy. But it's not the only one. They're also targeting their own diaspora. You're not hearing really things. That is actually a plastic hammer banging soft Italian leather in a Transylvanian workshop. I know this because a neon sign tells me so. I'm in the House of Compulsion. And the mistress of this house, wielding the hammer, is Alina. What are you making there? Wait a minute, is that a corset?
No, this is a skirt.
It's a skirt.
It's a skirt with suspenders, and because we can't iron the leather, because you can't iron it, it's the equivalent of ironing. We're basically hammering the seams to make them nice and flat, so we can make the final stitch.
I fear that my days of wearing a House of Compulsion leather-zipped skirt with, what are these, stirrups? No, they're not. What are they called? Suspenders. Suspenders.
There's a skirt for every woman. It doesn't have to be...
I'm in Cluj-Napoca, a city in the west of Romania and one of its richest, with fashion designer Alina Morar. She returned here in 2019, having spent 5 years in London. I asked her why she'd originally left her homeland.
When you graduate as a fashion designer in a country where the fashion industry is not really developed because there's not a lot of job opportunities, and you still want to maybe do something in this area, I just thought it's going to be easier for me to find my way or my creative voice while being, in a city that's so much more developed in terms of fashion and self-expression. Like here, if you walk, now it's a bit better, but back then, 10 years ago, I had blue hair, like everyone was making fun and pointing fingers at me. Self-expression wasn't big.
Was that a push factor for you? Did that sort of help you make the leap to Britain?
Yeah, and I was just curious to see what's out there. I chose to stay there just because my girlfriend was already living there for quite a few years, and I fell in love with, everything that Britain was offering to me in terms of, being creative and being open. And I just love the feeling of just walking on the streets wearing whatever you want or nothing at all, and no one says anything or stares at you, but in a weird way. They just, it's almost like it was appreciative every time. And
So what you're saying as a expressive, gay, creative, you felt more othered in your own country than you did in Britain?
Yeah.
As an immigrant?
Yes.
There's a kind of irony to that, isn't there?
Life is full of ironies, what can I say?
What brings you back? What pulls you back to Romania?
Well, this, on Facebook, and some members of my family told me that there are this funding that's been offered to people that have been living outside of Romania for at least 1 year. It's funding for startups, for people that have an idea about something they want to do. It doesn't have to be, I didn't even have to have a company. I just needed to have an idea and a business plan put together with something that I wanted to do. They were offering around 33K.
33,000 pounds?
Yeah.
Is that pounds or euros?
Euros.
Alina misses her life in England. She openly admits she only returned to Romania because of the startup grant. With the help of EU funds, in 2014, the government introduced diaspora bursaries worth over 70 million euros. And what about your market?
Surprisingly enough, I found a huge market in Romania, and I didn't expect that. My communication was in English from the beginning. My website was in English. Everything, on social media was in English. I never thought Romania would, because unfortunately we're a bit of Romanians like high-end labels. When they spend money on an item, you have to know that it's an expensive item and it's that brand. And because of that way of thinking about clothing, we never thought we're going to stand a chance. But actually, it's been 4 years and we're selling 90% in Romania. And
90%?
Yeah.
But what a changed world. Your range goes from what kind of price point?
200 euros, I think it's...
Up to about £1,000?
Yeah.
Good suppliers and Western standards are harder to find. But unlike the Romania Alina left behind 10 years ago, nowadays many here have a decent disposable income, especially in Cluj-Napoca.
I want to show you the nicest room and then we can continue.
Oh, it's pretty nice, to be honest.
So this is the, we got...
What a beautiful
how are they
window.
called? I forgot.
In his Alfa Romeo, self-made millionaire Adrian Florian has brought me to a converted Austro-Hungarian mansion that is now his office. Wolfpack Digital is an app design company he runs with his wife.
Cluj is internally we call ourselves the Silicon Valley of Eastern Europe. So it's easier to move here when you're in tech. And I even saw some statistics that it's in the top 10 places to live as an IT, as a programmer, in terms of salary, cost of living and so on.
Like many young Romanians, when Adrian left school, he too went abroad to study in Denmark.
I explored the idea with my parents and they were like, you got to leave because that's the normal way to do it. Like, you can't do anything in this country. You got to, go and make yourself a better future. So that was their attitude, right?
I wonder to what extent being able to go abroad helped you arrive where you are today as somebody who employs 90 people.
Oh, I don't think I could have done it without. So I think what we lacked a role model, someone to kind of
Romania lacked a role model.
Romania lacked role models in entrepreneurship and everything else.
So what you're saying is you needed to see that firsthand. You needed to see it for yourself to bring it back here.
I needed to see it, that it was such a big attitude difference.
Adrian and leather designer Alina are just the sort of young people that one-time Romanian Prime Minister and now Mayor of Cluj-Napoca, Emil Boc, has been trying to tempt home. I was hoping to see your turtle, Domnul.
I would have loved, but unfortunately they died. It's a pity. It was from very early 2004 when I arrived in the mayor office, and it was so small. They was in a small glass of water, and they got bigger and bigger. But that's life. Have to move forward.
Yeah, no one lives forever.
That's right.
I just want you to take me back to when you're Prime Minister. It's 2008.
Yes.
It's the biggest year for, I think,
Crisis.
Romanian migration. There's 300,000 people leave in 1 year. The next year, over 200,000. Did you have sleepless nights? Did you think, are we going to survive as a country losing this many?
Unfortunately, the entrance of Romania in the European Union was followed by the economic crisis. So it was accelerating the migration process. We were in the situation not to have money to pay pension and salaries. But in the situation when we entered the European Union, when you have a salary of 500 euros and you got 2,000 in European Union, of course they left for European Union, for Great Britain.
And what impact did that have here on the ground in Romania?
We had to cancel projects because there are no people in construction. We have money but no people to work and to finalize a bridge or a street or something like that. We had to close sometimes hospitals. We had to cancel projects. We had, in the worst case scenario possible, a combination of losing people and economic crisis.
The scale of the exodus was terrifying, but these days Romania is a changed place. Aided by an EU boost of 30 billion euros, it's projected to be the third fastest growing economy in the European Union this year. Boc is determined to capitalise on the country's improved economic circumstances.
My vision is, how can we turn brain drain, which is migration, brain drain, to brain gain, to brain circulation. We are in a good situation in Cluj-Napoca. Romania lost 4 million Romanians after the integration in the European Union. In Cluj, we didn't lose population because we invest in innovation, in high tech. We have the highest number of IT people in Europe, in Cluj-Napoca, because we shift the strategy towards innovation and knowledge economy. That explains the success of Cluj.
Is it working?
It's working.
And are Romanians coming back to live here?
Yes, there are a lot of Romanians which came back from Great Britain, starting with an incubator, business incubator, a restaurant, or an IT, working in Cluj-Napoca. People from diaspora are already in Cluj-Napoca. You may find a lot here.
Within Romania, Cluj-Napoca is something of a honeypot. But Boc insists the policies to win back the diaspora and stem the numbers leaving are nationwide. The government decided
to increase the salaries for doctors and nurses. And we succeed to keep many doctors home, to give incentives to the people to come back in agriculture field and in other domain to start a business. You have money from the government with European money and national money.
I hear your message and I hear it really clearly, and I've seen the fruits of it. I've talked to entrepreneurs who've been encouraged back here with funding and with your policies. But I've also seen a changing face of Romania. A lot of the more menial jobs are no longer filled by Romanians. I've talked to people from Nepal, from Sri Lanka. The first time my Romanian
Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, Vietnam.
So are you only targeting the brightest and the best Romanians to come home? What about the lower salaried people?
No. We are asking and looking for everyone. We have a lot of problems in terms of not having enough people to work in construction. So of course we are trying to have them back. So the government did a decision to increase the salary for construction. It was not enough. So we have to find some solutions in order to keep them home.
Okay, number 21. It's 12, 14, 16. This'll do. Wonderful. I absolutely love Romanian sleeping cars. It's one thing I feel the Alfa Romeo generation of Romanians are missing out on. The experience of a sleeping carriage through the night, cutting through the mountains of Romania to wake up in Moldova. I'm heading for Iași, the biggest city in the Romanian region called Moldova. It's in the country's poorer north and has been disproportionately hit by mass emigration.
După ce pui cartofiorii, Miha, apoi începem să facem foile de lasagna, să vadă un pic, doamna, da?
Wow, it's really hot in here. I'm just asking them how they manage with the heat.
Da, deschidem poata. Pe viitor sperăm să ne...
Lily Kosug is the master chef in a professional kitchen that she's built with 3 vital ingredients: hard work, know-how acquired in Italy, and a grant from the Romanian government.
M-a ajutat mult cu fiind
She's saying my husband helped me a lot to organize this space because it's just an apartment and it had to be all done according to regulations we have here. Because of course he's a builder.
Her company, Lasagna Cibuș, delivers fresh Italian food with a Moldovan twist to local businesses. Today's batch is for a hospital conference. She's now beckoning me to come outside onto the balcony. She goes, come and listen to the birds. And sure enough, I love this part of Romania. Here she's going to give us some coffee, but I just want to explain the view because it's so beautiful. I first came here 30 years ago and I fell in love with the landscape and the vibe of Moldova. But it has changed. It's, you look out now and across the road from where we're standing, there are villas, shiny roofs, impressive cars, 4x4s driving past, solar panels in among the wildflowers. It's an extraordinary combination of old school Romanian peasant landscape, but with new money. And like mushrooms, villas popping up all over the place. Needless to say, Lily and husband Jon have built their own villa, a home for their family of 3. It was so big, Lily turned the top floor into her lasagna kitchen. Whoa, look what's just come to the table.
Și băiatul și în curând pleacă și doamnele de sus care lucrează.
Amazing.
Asta e lasagna bolognese,
Oh my
asta e 4
goodness.
formaggi și asta e cu creveni.
Yeah. Yeah, absolute fine, Lily. This is superba. Husband Jon joins us at the table and explains why he left Romania 30 years ago.
În 1993, aveam 22 de ani. Era grea pentru că lipseau banii. Deci era de la an, era foarte mare, cum se cheamă?
He's saying I first went to Italy in 1993. I was 22 years old. I decided to leave because it was very, very hard, financially hard.
Da, dar o grămadă de munci am făcut.
I did everything I could when I got to Italy to earn money. I work on a farm, I work in agriculture, I even washed cars.
Firma mea am avut-o după 8 ani.
8 years later, I ended up running my own company in 2001. I had 2 or 3 employees, but they were all Romanians.
2-3 români aveam.
In 2000, Jon met his wife Lily when he went back to Romania for Christmas and persuaded her to join him in Italy.
Că mi-era dor de casă, tot timpul plângeam.
I was crying all the time. I was crying on all holidays. I miss my family. But the irony is that from a financial point of view, it was way better for us there.
Keen to set up her own business, in 2016 it was Lily's turn to persuade her husband to move and return home after Jon had spent 23 years in Italy. But running a construction company in Romania hasn't been easy, especially with a shortage of builders in Europe.
Am avut șantier și n-am avut cine să fac și am trebuit să iau de altă firmă. Pentru că aveam
As an example, I had the construction site and I had no people, absolutely no people to work with.
Am 3 angajați români.
I have 3 employees here. They're all Romanian, but they don't have the same work ethics like the Romanians living abroad. They're not serious. They come when they want, they leave.
This programme is about Romanians who have returned. I get this kind of feeling that for educated Romanians, there's a real reason to come home. There's a position here to fill, there's a growing market. But in terms of the less qualified worker, fewer proportionally have come back. Is that the case?
Deci eu îi dau spun că e un salariu de 1000 de euro.
I pay my workers 1,000 euros a month. That's the same amount of money that the worker in Italy would earn, but they still don't want to come back because they don't feel like they would adapt here. They got used to the standard of life they have there. And to be honest, even for us, it was very hard to come back. And I believe things are more organized there. School is better, healthcare is better.
I must admit that it's harder for the average worker to succeed here.
E mai greu pentru un muncitor, da?
There is a global shortage of healthcare workers, and for years Romania's health sector has been disproportionately hit, losing thousands of trained staff overseas every year. Dan Biris, 42 years old and a consultant in fetal medicine, worked for nearly a decade in Britain's NHS.
So we are in the hospital I'm working at the moment in Timișoara. This is the fetal medicine department. We have room 7 and 8, and this is where I come to work.
It's just so funny sitting here with you, Dan, because I actually rang you up thinking, there was that gynecologist, that I interviewed before at King's. He'll be able to tell me if there's any Romanian medical staff who've returned who I could possibly interview. And I ring your British number and you go, "Hi, Tessie, yes, I'm in Timișoara." I had no idea you'd moved back.
Yes.
I first met Dan in 2016 when I was a patient in King's College Hospital, London. 4 years later, he and his wife Ioana, a fetal cardiologist, returned home to Romania's most western city, Timișoara. This year, it's the European capital of culture.
We have decided to come back right in time in Timișoara because there have been a lot of, if you want, from the aesthetic perspective, you have the buildings, a lot of facelift of all the historical buildings. There's a lot of festivals happening in Timișoara, which I don't recall this happening 10, 15 years ago. And I think you feel much more up to date with what's happening in the world.
It feels much more connected here, doesn't it now?
Oh, yeah. It's becoming a win-win situation for certainly young professionals like us who have given probably our best 10 years of our life in England, working our life out. Yeah, absolutely.
Of all the policies the Romanian government's introduced to get the diaspora back, their most successful has been in the health sector. In 2018, they increased salaries by around 70% overnight. And by 2021, the number of doctors applying to work abroad had almost halved.
They have managed to increase the salaries, even in the public sector, to a decent income, to stop the migration of doctors. And that was a major thing. So the whole salaries in the hospitals have, I think, at least tripled in 2018 or 2019.
3 times?
Yes. So a junior doctor, they were starting before with the equivalent of something like £200-300. Next month, their income was nearly £1,200-1,300.
Wow.
So it was a major change in terms of incomes.
The unprecedented salary increase has made a big difference to recruitment levels in Romanian hospitals. But for Dan, pay wasn't the reason for his return home.
I wanted to, not to save the system, but to change something about the Romanian system. And I've realized that it's only if I come back and if I start working the way I want, is the only way I can prove that we can change something, or we can't yet. But I need to be here and then just try and improve the system or change something about the system.
An example of that change that Dan gave, he wants all pregnant women in Romania to have access to the same routine injections as British women. But like so many returnees I've met, Dan and Ioana's story is more complicated than it first appears.
Right now, today, to be more precise, I have applied for a consultant job in England.
It turns out that Ioana has spent the last year and a half commuting between hospitals in Timișoara and London. And if she gets her dream consultant job, her British journey isn't over yet.
So I can't really say that I'm happy 100%. I'm not maybe even focused 100% on my work here because I miss her, or I miss the time we had together. So it's like I came back, but half of me came back, half of me stayed there.
The returnee's migration experience is invariably a complex one. But Mayor of Cluj-Napoca, Emil Boc, is undeterred.
I know that their soul is in Romania. I'm sure their heart and soul is here. I know that in one day, sooner or later, they'll be back. Sooner, the better. We need them in order to modernize our country, to be proud of our country, as we are proud as Romanians all over in Europe. So I invite them to have trust. Romania has changed. It's a different country.
Wow, look at this. Oh, fancy. What is that?
It's like a gin and tonic.
But has Romania changed enough to satisfy its diaspora? Before leaving, I checked in with Alinka, the pharmacist we met at the start of the programme, who's swapping her life in London for a trial run in the city where she grew up, Iași.
This is one of my favourite places here. It's a really, really nice bar.
Come on, look at the view.
And you can see the view. There's the cathedral there. You can probably see the Palace of Culture, or maybe not, because it's behind those tall buildings.
And I know you've only been back 2 weeks.
2 weeks.
But is it somewhere you can imagine staying?
I'm very happy because you can see that there are a lot of things to do here. There are a lot of really, really nice places. And the fact that I don't know if I want to go back to London next year, that says a lot about Iași. I really enjoy my time here, and we'll see where life will take me next year, I guess. But I do have the idea in my mind that I might actually stay here and not go back.
Here's to you,
Cheers,
Alinka,
cheers,
and your
Tessa.
future, wherever it may be.
Oh, thank you.
This edition of Assignment was presented by me, Tessa Dunlop, and the producer was Phoebe Keane.
Hi, I'm Hannah. I am the host of a new daily podcast, What in the World, from the BBC World Service, where we try to help you make sense of the world around you, explaining the big events and some of the smaller events, so that you might feel a little bit better when you pick up your phone and scroll through your newsfeed. Just search for What in the World wherever you get your BBC podcasts and hit subscribe.